Okay, so everybody, hello. Welcome to Old School Magic Spotlight, the podcast where you take the center stage and tell us your magic story. So today we have got Olga, who is one of the old school magic veterans, playing on the webcam before it became mainstream, and organizing tournaments, fostering the 93-94 community in one of the best ways possible. So, hi, Olga, and welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Phil, for having me here.
Yes, you're welcome. So, Olga, please tell us your magic story. How did magic start for you? Not even necessarily 93, 94, but what are your first memories of magic?
Yeah, okay. My story is far from typical. I guess, yeah, you will be surprised that I haven't known of magic till I think 2015. So
Oh,
magic hadn't existed before for me. And in 2015, I started visiting my local game store. I had a Merfolk deck for Modern. It was not very powerful, but so this way I figured out how Magic the Gathering worked, how it was played, the basic rules, and so on. But well, it was just another board game for me, nothing special. But 1 year later, about 2016, I was building a deck for EDH. It was a mono green deck that generated tons of mana, and somebody suggested that I should use Ifh-Biff Efreet as a finisher for this deck. I didn't
that's
know
where it all
about this
started, the
card.
Ifh-Biff Efreet.
Yeah,
Okay,
this
straight
was
from Arabian Nights.
it was
Hmm.
this card, yeah, and let me show you this particular card. It's right here. Excuse some glare. I think everything works fine. So this is the card that started old school for me. It's Ifh-Biff Efreet, and it was very hard to find it locally. Nobody knew about this card, absolutely, and I only managed to buy it in Moscow. So okay, and I was surprised that the price was pretty high. And I didn't know anything about old boarded cards, so it looked really strange to me. And here, excuse some glare. I think everything works fine. So this is the card that started old school for me. It's Ifh-Biff Efreet, and it was very hard to find it locally. Nobody knew about this card, absolutely, and I only managed to buy it in Moscow. So okay, and I was surprised that the price was pretty high. And I didn't know anything about old boarded cards, so it looked really strange to me. And it didn't do much. After all, it was not very powerful in modern terms. And okay, so I bought it, and I didn't pay much attention to it. But several months later, I was getting into poker. And I came across these cards, so Cambodia Witches and Oubliette. And again, it was so hard for me to find those cards. And they were pretty high priced again. So yeah, and I wanted to know why these cards look different and why they cost so much. I started browsing the internet and found out quickly that these cards were from the oldest expansion set of Magic, Arabian Nights. So this is how I figured out the set, which later became my most favorite Magic edition. Uh, so yeah, this is how it started. And I started to replace all my EDH cards with all the borders. Unfortunately, it was not always possible. It was very hard, and um, the deck didn't work as it should have worked for me, and I was desperate to build even at least a weak deck for EDH, but only with old borders. I started looking for ideas and browsing the internet again, and it didn't take long until I came across Magnus Delaval and his famous old school blog. And this is how it all started. I was just so excited that I was not alone. There were actually lots of people who didn't care about new cards, about new borders, just like me. So it was the format where I could play all my favorite cards with artwork that I saw on the web. I didn't own many cards at that moment. I think maybe 3, 5 cards, but I was in love with the atmosphere of old Magic sets, and this is how it all started for me.
Well, that's a fascinating story, really. And again, it's we can just say worked through serendipity, and you just discovered the OG, so to say, 93, 94 Swedish play group
Yeah.
and the blog. And it's really fascinating that you started with Arabian Nights. Again, as you said, it's definitely not easy to find any cards locally, pretty much in any country, I could say. So it's not that you can just go to an LGS and you would have some people who actually have the cards from
Yeah, yeah.
those editions. And yes, in 2015, as you said, it was even more underground, I guess, as a kind of a format. So definitely didn't spread that far. So yes, and what were your next steps into getting into old school when you got in contact with Magnus and just starting reading more about the
Yeah,
format?
I dived into blog posts by Magnus, and oh, it seemed like I discovered a whole new world for me. And since it was the Swedish blog, so Swedish rules in old school that I discovered, of course, I started building a deck that could be played following those rules, those reprint policy. And I knew that only original cards mattered there. So I started with a mono white. Somebody told me that mono white deck was the best for a new player like me, and it had a prospect of evolving into a tax edge deck later if I wanted to. So I was happy to buy these cool cards: Army of Ella, King Solomon, Thunder Spirit. This was the core of my new deck, and of course a couple of knights and so on.
So you
But
even got the basics from Unlimited. So again, the Swedish reprint policy is of course incredibly strict, and you cannot just get a revised land in, for example. Yeah,
yeah,
everything must
the
be cut off.
limitation is pretty rough. Yeah, and frankly speaking, I didn't manage to build a completely Swedish legal deck because it didn't take long till I found that there were actually lots of play groups on Facebook who allowed collector's edition and other types of reprints. So, and a collector's edition at that time, I don't think many people wanted to buy it. It was not that popular, so the price was pretty low. As soon as I knew that I would be able to play online with the collector's edition, I started buying cards, and that was my most active, I think, yeah, active purchases for old school were at that time when I discovered collector's edition for
And it
me.
was still back in 2015 or 2016, somewhere around that.
2016, I think, yes, 2016 and 17. So maybe, yeah, those 2 years.
So it's still
And
before the massive boom of old school
absolutely. So
magic.
you can imagine that Savannah cost something about $20. And
In collector's edition, yes.
yeah, collector's edition, of
Hmm.
course. I bought all the dual lands, all the play sets. Yeah, not that I thought that I would need them, but I thought it was so cheap. So I just had to put it in my binder and then take them out whenever I need it and build new decks. And I remember it was 2017, I think. My hubby bought a collector's edition Black Lotus for me, and he presented it as he said, the most expensive flower that he'd ever bought. And at that time, it cost
Okay,
$300. It was.
nice.
So it was not that expensive, but of course, yeah, he was shocked that it would cost so much, but it made me happy. So this is the most expensive flower, and I think I ever got, and he ever presented someone.
Well, yes, that's an amazing story. And I definitely remember that I had been browsing various kind of online stores such as Card Kingdom, Troll and Toad, and so on for a very long time. And I was always interested in just looking, for example, at the pictures of the older cards that I fell in love with. And I remember that once I just saw these dual lands and also the Power 9 cards, such as Ancestral Recall. And then there is this weird thing. So, collector's edition, what is that? And some of the stores just put up signs saying that this is not tournament legal,
Yeah,
so that
like
people
going
don't
across
get,
across
yes,
the card,
confused.
not tournament legal.
Yes, yes. And then I thought, okay, what is this? Is it some kind of a scam, or I am not sure what it is even. Is it a real card? And even today, I guess there are some people, maybe even some of those who are watching us now, they would say that the collector's edition is not real Magic card, but still, of course, the attitude to those cards changed dramatically, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
yes. So, but still, you were mostly playing, not mostly, but you were exclusively playing, not online, but just in your LGS, or did you already start to play on the webcam back then?
No, I think as soon as I discovered that I would be able to play online many games, not only here and there, but even organized events. So
Mhm.
it was a turning point for me. I quit all other formats. So by that time, I think I tried modern, EDH, Pauper, maybe some limited events here and there. But as soon as I made the decision, I just sold all my cards except for the old school stuff. So now I'm slowly getting into pre-modern. So I'm again buying something except for old school, but still only old bordered cards. So I hate the modern artwork. I hate the modern frame. I'm sorry for saying this. Maybe not everyone will be pleased to hear that, but I
But I
think,
guess most people, yes, and I
yeah.
absolutely am with you on
And,
that one.
I just glanced at the new cards, and so I glanced at them and then forget them. I mean, in old school, every single card is just a piece of art. It's just a masterpiece, and we can recognize different artists just by looking at the cards. They have their style, their atmosphere, and unlike the modern day sets, it's just like the artwork has been created by I don't know, computer generated. The
Yeah, so
modern
what do you
artwork, I
think is
mean.
the appeal of old school Magic art? So it has more personality, or you think that the artists were more free to express themselves? Why do you think it's so? Because there are a lot of people who believe that, and so do I.
Yeah, I mean, I said that each and every card is a standalone masterpiece, and this is it. So maybe at the very beginning, I don't know, the game was not intended to be so mass-produced, and so the artists, they treated each and every commission as a single individual commission. I mean, it was not a mass-produced uh, like series of art.
Exactly. So it wasn't such a commercial project, yes, where you would
Yep,
have some
yep.
kind of art direction and some very strict guidelines, for instance. So they
Yeah,
were
and
just
every
free to
card
express.
it has a flavor text, or even if it doesn't have any flavor text, it has a story behind. So and take any card from here, I don't know, maybe a Diamond Valley. So it's a card that was mentioned in the Arabian Nights book, and it has a story. Let me check it out. I have this book, by the way. This is a collector's edition of
Oh, nice.
Mag Collector's
Okay.
History of
I
Magic:
have
The
actually never
Gathering.
heard of it.
It's
Yeah,
it is designed as an old bordered card, and it has lots of
exactly.
cool
As
pieces
an
of
artifact,
trivia.
yes, from
Yes,
back in the day.
what it says about Arabian Nights and Diamond Valley in particular. It's from Sinbad's Voyages, and the diamond gatherers in that book, I think, they would skin sheep carcasses and cast them into the valley so the diamonds would stick to them, and then haul them out with a rope without fear of the snakes. So
Oh,
this is the Diamond Valley. We can take, I think, almost any other card from old school, and it has a cool piece of story, piece of trivia behind. It's completely different from nowadays magic. maybe a set has a complete story behind the several hundred of cards, but not each and every card.
Yeah, so this is quite amazing about Arabian Nights, which again for me also is probably one of my favorite, if not the favorite set in old school Magic, is that you even have some real life locations. So you've got Library of Alexandria. Yes, you have
Oh
got
yeah,
Ali from Cairo, which is a real city. You have got King Suleiman, who is mentioned in many religious texts. So, of course, that
yeah,
wouldn't be possible today. And just as you said, the idea of magic being some kind of a passion project of Richard Garfield and also Wizards of the Coast, and it was not such a hugely well planned venture, so to say. Maybe this actually contributed to it being so organic and with so much diversity in terms of cards and everything.
yeah.
Yes. So what was the very first deck that you actually managed to put together? As you said, was it White Weenie?
Uh, I wasn't able to finish my Swedish legal project, unfortunately, and I switched to something cheaper and maybe more, I don't know, less popular. Uh, so I took the Ifh-Biff Efreet that I already owned at that time, and I used it in a deck that I think it is known as a mirror ball deck, which
Hmm.
is that you make damage, many points of damage to your opponent, and that you switch life after that before you finish off with a fireball. I took off the fireball and used green and Ifh-Biff Efreet in particular as a finisher. The deck had lots of painful stuff: Force of Nature, City of Brass. It was very fun, but I don't think I ever managed to switch life on time. I died all the
Oh,
time.
that's the problem. All right.
Yeah, but green with artifacts, it was a cool combination. And this is, I think, the first deck that was uh, thought through, and it was a finished project. After that, I copied several decks and decked, as we say it now, and just to feel the old school play. Um, and started collecting, of course, Jusam Djinns. So Jusam Djinn Berserk, double Berserk on the Jusam on the second turn is still my all-time favorite combo. I think
Right.
I managed to make it work several times. And also with the Berserk, I have another cool, not combo, but cool play. I had a Birds of Paradise on the battlefield, and it was on defense, and
Hmm.
it was fighting a Shivan dragon. So I played a Giant Growth on the bird and berserked it. And since it was on defense, I even didn't have to sacrifice it end of turn. So the bird managed to take down a Shivan dragon and live to tell the tale.
Yes, yes, exactly. Wow, that's amazing, how many different the synergies and possibilities we have. And to be honest, I actually had not seen a Mirror Universe deck in action. I mean, of course, we all know Mirror Universe is a nice card, and in my opinion, it's still a little bit underrated, but perhaps this is the reason why, because it's not always easy to make it work.
Yeah,
But still, that there is just so much freedom on this card pool of just several hundred of cards. And if we talk about playable cards, that would be maybe just a couple hundred, but still, that there is quite a lot of depth. So, as you said, you sold everything, you got into old school Magic, just decided to dive into it. And I know that this is the case for many people. There are, of course, some people who still play modern, they still play some formats except for old school Magic. But for many of us, myself included, this is where we actually stay. So, if we talk about art, if we get back to the discussion of art, who are some of your favorite artists?
oh, I think first and foremost, Jesper Myhrfors, the earliest art director of the game, and
Mhm.
the overall simplicity of old school artwork is what attracts me the most. And Jesper Myhrfors and I think Amy Weber are my most favorite. The cards by these artists are, well, they are simple at first glance, but there are so many details, and they are unbeatable in creating the atmosphere of old school. I mean,
Yes, Eddie
this
Weber's
is,
art is just something else. It is something that is incredibly hard to imitate. I think it is an
yes.
absolutely unique style, and it's just something that comes from within, as I see it, because different people have different styles, but maybe it's just their feeling, it's just their internal state of mind and creativity, for example, that drives them to paint some particular pictures in some particular style, some particular
Yeah, I
paintings. And
agree that
Amy
the
Weber
artwork
is really amazing.
artwork is amazing. Yeah, you're right. And the very, I think the epitome of old school to
Hmm.
me is in this card. I was
Yeah, this original
fascinated.
forest by Christopher
Yes,
Rush.
absolutely. This winding path, turning the corner into new adventures. Uh, well, it's just unbelievable how using uh, not so many details, not so many colors. I mean, the modern opportunities are far more diverse. But the condensed art, I think it's just amazing how the artists create the atmosphere. And also one of my favorite cards, The Moss
Yes, Moss
Monster by
Monster.
Jesper Mirfors. Yeah, and I also have a life counter. My hubby made it for me
Yeah, so
with this
this is
particular
one of
card.
the things, yes, that were actually quite popular. I don't know whether it was a thing from back in the day, so before people used, combination of D6, or before you had a spin down D20 die. Was it just something that people used back in the 90s to count life?
This is a copy. Some guy made they took the favorite cards, so you may place an order and they ask which card you prefer, and they just glue the card on a piece of wood, stick to rods, place some beads here, so it's like a replica of the old life counters used in Magic in the early years of Magic. And I think I saw many people just use small pieces of glass, like the
Some fish
as a,
tank
as
beads,
life
for
counters.
example.
Yeah,
Yeah.
glass
Hmm.
beads and so on and so on. It's not very convenient for online games because it's still too small. But in reality, when I do have games in reality, I always use this life counter, the more so because the artwork is one of my favorite.
Yes, yes. And if we get back just to your favorite cards, do you have any kind of pet cards? Maybe some of those, I don't know, pretty unfortunate misfit cards, which nobody likes, but you do for some reason.
My most favorite cards are the ones that are the most worn out, I think. Just like this, for example, the Jusums, which are pretty much, I think, medium played or something like this, but this one
Some
is,
well-loved cards, yes.
yeah, with cards with history. When I take these cards, I'm so excited to hold them, to play them. This Ali from Kairos, uh, even some pieces of cards are missing here, and the backs are,
Yes, they're definitely destroyed in that manner. But again, it
yeah,
just means that people did play them. And of course, there were no
absolutely.
sleeves back in the day. So,
Absolutely, no sleeves, and each and every time that I take these cards, I wonder people in which countries shuffled them, in which schoolyards they played them, and what kind of rules the cards took before they got into my deck box. Say, for example, this bazaar was once folded in half, and I
oh,
wonder
yes.
who made it many years ago and what for. So yeah, the cards with history are my favorite.
Yes, so we talked about Swedish as the very first subformat that you got into. This
Mhm.
was the original 93-94 old school Magic subformat. But are there any other formats that you have dabbled into and the ones that you like now?
I tried many of them. Unfortunately, I don't have much time to build decks under some different rules. I mean, different card pools. So now if I can play, I play the traditional old school. But several years ago, the guy from France, David Desjardins, I think. I don't know how to pronounce his name correctly.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but he had a group on Facebook and organized events in Old Type 2. I think that Old Type 2 it was called, the
Yes,
format.
yes, because his original idea was time walking. He actually had a blog on
Yep,
Blogspot that was
yep,
called that. And his idea was not just to play, let's just say, modern Magic with the old cards, but to be able to get back to those times. And of course, imagine that we have access to more cards than we probably had as kids, but still to be able to get back to those times where even rules were different, yes, such as
yeah,
tapped blockers not dealing damage, and some difference in how life was checked, for example, in different phases. Yeah,
yeah.
and
They
you actually
wanted.
was an admin, yes, and tournament organizer for that group.
Yeah, I helped David because he wasn't able to manage two groups. He created also an old school 95 group where the traditional old school card pool was complemented by Ice Age, Homelands, and Fallen Empires, of course. And so we had two groups and we ran monthly events and we had not bad turn. I think something about sometimes 8 people, sometimes even twice as many. So people played regularly, but then David disappeared. Unfortunately, I didn't hear from him. I asked people from France to maybe check with him. How's he going? I don't know. Unfortunately, I don't know what happened to him.
Yeah, yeah, it's a very mysterious and even a bit sad story because I had also been in contact with him. And in any case, David Desjardins is most likely not his real name because he went under at least two different other names, as people told me. So yes,
Mhm,
we
mhm.
just can hope that he got fed up and decided to do something else. So I hope
Yeah,
David
he
is
was a
doing fine.
competitive player, and I liked his idea to recreate uh, the game as it used to be played many years ago because everything was new for me. Maybe many people were there due to nostalgia. It's not about me. I don't have any type of nostalgia about Magic, but I loved the atmosphere. I loved the rules, and so it was a cool idea. Unfortunately, we have a break there. I don't know if we ever
Yes,
start
yes.
again.
No, no, no. That's a very interesting point that you made about David also being a very spiky player, right? And
Yeah,
I remember that he could go to the extremes that he would sometimes write that people who play some of the major events are just mostly no scrubs and hypocrites because they don't want to win, but they want to do something else. But it was fine, you know. I knew that if he had an event organized and I played this white and blue control, not exactly like the deck, but I had some of the pieces, and he was very happy because it was the battle of control. So he was looking for a challenge, not in order
yeah.
to just, I don't know, mm, rub it into somebody's face, but just in order to challenge himself and win. So what
Yeah,
about you, by the way? Yeah, which of the archetypes of Timmy, Johnny, and Spike is the closest to you personally?
well, I'm 100% non-competitive player, and I think it was. I'm grateful to David that he bared with me because it was absolutely evident that he sometimes suffered from me figuring out all those triggers and stack and so on. I just couldn't hold every little detail in my head, and my decks were not as spiky as his. So, but he was very tolerant with me.
Yes. So also your example proves that old school Magic is not just about nostalgia, because we do have this kind of a stereotype of an old school player, that it is a person who typically played in the 90s and Sometimes maybe they just kept playing. We have a ton of stories of people who sold their Power 9 for just a couple $100. Of course, we all heard that, but then had to buy it
Yeah.
back for the amounts, that are much larger than that. But you actually never played Magic in those, so to say, old frame days. But still, you grew up in the 90s, as I understand, and probably there was some kind of stuff that you liked. Maybe, I don't know, video games or fantasy. What were some of the, so to say, geeky maybe hobbies that you had that maybe had some connection with those times?
It may seem strange, but I didn't have anything like that in my childhood in the 90s. I spent almost all my free time outside, which
Hmm.
is which is a more healthy way of life, but maybe it's not as fun as it may seem to nowadays kids. Well, of course, I read books. I read Tolkien, and I liked the universe created by Tolkien so much.
So yeah,
And
just
I
the
was,
flavor of fantasy
yes,
itself.
absolutely. And I think this made an enormous contribution in my appreciation of old school, because it was like something tangible that I could feel at, and that contained the pieces that maybe I imagined in my head, something like, skeletons, and here they are, uh, like we say, maybe giant growth skeleton, and it is exactly what I imagined in my head in my early days of getting into fantasy overall. Frozen shades and I don't know, terror, all those creatures, Kabal, they are very, very, I don't know, um, representative maybe
Yes.
of fantasy.
Right, right. So yes, this is the interesting trick, right? Because of course, if we talk about kids nowadays, they are used to being bombarded with different images. Nowadays, some people can even use AI to just make some of their ideas and thoughts materialize. But
Yeah,
to us, of course, any kind of an illustration, some fantasy picture, it already mattered a lot, and we could spend
absolutely,
a lot of
absolutely.
time.
And again, we return to when we said that each and every card mattered. And now the value of any single piece of fantasy may be a bit diluted by the amount of information, as you said. So much information that it's hard to concentrate on anything in particular.
So yeah, this is what we call the principle that can be called less is more. So yes, we
Yeah.
don't have that many cards in old school Magic again, and even though I usually like to say that nobody knows all of the Legends cards, it's a kind of a set that is almost infinite in terms of discovering new stuff. But still, that seems to be enough, and it allows us to go a little bit deeper into discovering these things. I remember very well when I officially quit playing all new border Magic, and I buy listed some of the stuff that I had. I traded some of the stuff for old school Magic mostly, and one of the final steps was me just gathering my friends at an LGS, and we had a draft where I just put a lot of packs of rare cards, so it was just rare drafting
Mm.
of modern cards, and it was usually cards from the previous 10 years, for example. So this happened in 2018. And there were some cards from, for example, Return to Ravnica and some of those sets, which actually seem quite valuable nowadays. But in any case, when people just looked at those cards, they said, "Oh, I don't remember this card. I never actually noticed it, even though I was very actively playing Magic back when Return to Ravnica was the current set." So it just means that nowadays, and I think this is exactly, if we don't go too deep into conspiracy theories, but this is exactly what Wizards of the Coast want us to do. Just be waiting for the next thing, and we just barely scratch the surface of a new set. So that's why old school is so valuable, because you don't have to move to the next thing. You can just go deeper on what you already have.
Absolutely. You just, as you said, can can go deeper. You just can, for example, if you love some tribe, you can dig deeper and find the representatives of those tribes that were actually printed long time ago, and you collect each and every, say, I have a blazing effigy. Each and every effigy. I don't think that there were many effigies in old school, actually, but still, it's always possible to dig deeper and find new cards for your deck or for your idea to develop it into something interesting.
So yeah, actually, effigy is one of those cards that I look at now, and I always remember your deck. So can you tell us about that deck that you had with Diamond Valley? Because when I looked at this card, I thought this card doesn't make sense, because even the mechanic that it has, that one effigy can damage another one, but it doesn't even multiply the damage, it just does the same thing. So why does it even exist? But you still made it work some way.
Yeah, this thing is unfortunate that nothing multiplies, just like poison in old school. Unfortunately, it doesn't add up. Just one poison counter. Yeah, so this is my pet deck. It has a couple of cool synergies in it. Say, for example, the Blazing Effigy, it gets Chain Lightning. And when I play Chain Lightning on the effigy, I can pay 2 red to make more points of damage. So, say, for example, Rukek takes another 3, or I can deal damage to my opponent's creatures. So, this chain of damage goes on and on until the board is cleared or many creatures died, and then I play Cabal Ghoul. So the ghoul enters the battlefield, and at the end of the turn, it gets many counters for the number of creatures that died. So this is one thing, and another is Disharmony, which is again a combat trick, which I'm in love with. I'm in love with combat tricks. I always tend to play them. It works maybe 1 out of 10 times, but when it works, it's so satisfying. So I steal an attacking creature with the Disharmony, and then I either use it as a blocker or sack it to Diamond Valley. And when it works, it's so cool. This is my pet deck. I tend to choose it for each and every event that I have an opportunity to play now. I think I'm not bored with it still. It's not boring. I will play it more and more, I think, and this is my favorite one. Yeah.
It's amazing, and it's also fun to play against, because yeah, I have played several games with you, and we actually should post some of those videos, because there are really interesting and unusual situations, and it still is, you know, more or less competitive for a really fun Johnny combo deck, so to say. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and also I remember that you told me that you got into Alpha 40. So this is again one of the sub formats that exists, and we don't really hear much about it nowadays. It's like a niche within a niche. So have you been able to play a lot of games? And also, can you show us the deck, because I see you've got it here?
Yeah, I was too lazy to take the sleeves off. I'm sorry if there's some glare on cards.
No, it's
It's
okay.
one of the cheapest, yeah, one of the cheapest decks, I think, that I built at the very beginning when people um, started building Alpha 40. So no powerful cards here, just something fun, like I think this is one of the most ridiculous cards here. It's Helm of Chatsuk.
Yeah, it's a rare, right, as we know.
Yeah, it's a rare. And by the way, I knew about a rarity of cards. I always thought that the rarity was given to most powerful cards, but it looks like it was not always the case, and it was not the case at all, maybe. I read something interesting, so let me read it aloud. The cards were under stringent requirements to qualify as common cards. They were well balanced, not devastating in quantity, yet not a waste of space. Cards that could not meet these criteria were relegated to the ghettos of rarity. Rare cards may be too powerful or too stupid, or just not as good as some other cards. Rarity is not an honor, it's a punishment.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is what it
And
says.
was it the original quote by Richard Garfield? Was
No,
it from the?
I don't know this guy who said it. It was Dave Howell, and he said it on the
Uh-huh.
19th of October in 1993. And there's a reference, actually, I
Oh
think.
yeah, Dave Howell, if I'm not mistaken, because I do know him on Facebook. I
Mhm.
think he's the one who was responsible for the scans of old school magic, and he is a part of the original Wizards team that
Oh,
worked on
yeah.
magic. Yeah.
Then he knows for sure. We cannot doubt in the so this is true. The rarity of Helm of Shatsuk may be because yeah, it was not very powerful, and sometimes and people didn't understand how banding worked, and they still don't understand. And I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
among them.
true. Yes, neither do I. Yes.
Yeah. So Helm of Chatsuk, and I'm sorry, the glare is just there are a bunch of Drudge skeletons. Giant Growth's my favorite, and also the Fungosaur and Pestilence. So this is a kind of small combo. Uh, it has two Pestilence and a Fungosaur, so I play the Pestilence activated once or as many times as I need, and the Fungosaur just grows. It becomes uh, more and more dangerous.
So yeah, in Alpha, by the way, speaking of the errata, because there was some kind of an errata later on to
Mhm.
Funkasaur, according to which he only would grow at the end of the turn. But I think that the Alpha text actually says otherwise. So it works like
Yes,
it does work today. So
it
it will
works
grow
as
after each point of damage it receives.
absolutely. It works as it is written on the card. The card says each time it is damaged but not destroyed, put a +1/+1 counter. But at least it says a +1/+1 counter. I think the Frozen Shade was intended to work in some other way because it says pay 1 black +1/+1. I think it should read until end of turn because
Oh, by the way, you are right. Yeah, I actually
yes,
never looked at the original text. Yeah, the one that I have is just from
it's very
revised.
brief. If we don't look at the flavor text, then
Mhm.
it's just a very short line which says 1 black +1/+1. So it is forever. The frozen shade grows and grows and grows. And one more card that worked differently is Cursed Land. It is well twice as good as it should be because it says does 1 damage to target land's controller during each upkeep. And
Oh, just like Copper Tablet does, right?
yep, so it is,
In
but
some way,
it
yeah.
deals damage only to my opponent and not
Yes.
to me,
And
but during
imagine
each
playing it
upkeep.
in multiplayer. That would be even better. So, yes.
Yeah, oh, sure. Yeah, I didn't think about it. So there's also an Opsianus Golem, Wall of Bone, which regenerates for 1 black. A bunch of basic lands here. Yeah, my favorite forests. So it's pretty much the very basic and cheapest creatures that we can find. Some Dream Lives, Terrors, and yeah. So the core of the deck is just Giant Growths, pesky Drudge Skeletons, with a couple more creatures. So that's it. This is my Alpha 40 deck.
Yes, but you have managed to play even maybe some events or just some pickup games on the old school
Maybe it
Facebook group.
was one event, yes, and several games here and there. In the event, I was not able to win many games. Maybe I went in each match 1-2, 0-2, something like that. But the overall atmosphere of playing alpha cards and looking at them on the opposite side of the table, it was second to none.
Yes. So, in your opinion, has the old school Magic community and just the format itself evolved over the years that you have been playing for the last several years? Has it
Well,
changed?
when I got into old school, uh, almost everyone was well on equal ground. So those who had cards, of course, they had some advantage, but overall, people were figuring out how everything worked, which decks were more powerful, less powerful. But as I'm a non-competitive player, I didn't care about powerful decks. I just wanted to put powerful cards in different janky decks, and just like a kind of support for janky cards. And now that I don't have much time to play regularly, to play organized events, I just pick up some games here and there. And old school experience is just, I think it's a fun experience of meeting many cool people from all over the world. One time in December, I remember I had a match scheduled for a derby, I think, and I played with a guy from Argentina, and we scheduled a match. After the match, well, the match was cool. We had a chat and exchanged our opinions about decks and so on and so on. And after that, he left to work on a ranch, at a ranch, and on a hot day. It was summer, obviously, in Argentina. And since it was December, Russian winter here, I went snowboarding. So it's just so cool when we have 1 or 2 hours to meet people from opposite sides of the globes. We just meet, talk, have fun, and everything is so different here where we live. But we just meet and have fun together.
Yes, that's one of the best things about old school Magic, and it really is one of the friendliest and welcoming communities that I have personally seen, not only in Magic, but pretty much anywhere, because it's come for the cards, come for the nostalgia, but stay for the community. And this is perhaps one of the reasons why many of us maybe are not even necessarily playing the game very actively, but we still engage with players of old school Magic. And I guess this is one of the appeals to it. So, one more question I wanted to ask you is whether magic has taught you any valuable lessons in life, maybe helped you to go deeper into some area of life?
Well, I think it's more, it maybe made me appreciate artwork more. Maybe I just wasn't paying much attention to all this stuff. But so artwork became one of my most precious pieces of collection of cards. And yeah, now I paid much more attention to this, not like as I used to. I just could maybe pass and didn't pay much attention. But overall, as I'm non-competitive player, I don't like to hold many information in my head, because I tend to play after a long day at work, and my brain is just so tired. So I'm not into planning ahead for many turns. I just relax, pour a cup of coffee, maybe a cup of tea, and have some fun with people, chatting and playing at the same time. So I make lots of mistakes. That is why competitive player may be a bit annoyed and irritated when they have to play against me. But I just don't care. I love the overall friendly atmosphere, and the community, as you said, is just the one of the most important parts of old school. People are very welcoming and friendly.
Yeah, so do you think you will ever sell your collection? What is your long-term plan? Because, there is a little bit of an maybe self-deceptive element in some way, because yes, as you said, we when we buy some magic cards, of course we do think about the price, but at the same time there is this understanding that it does have some value, and one day you can actually sell it, or to at least get your money back, or even maybe a little bit more. So in any case, if we just think of it as an entertainment where we just be spending money endlessly, probably it wouldn't have been the same situation, right? So what is have you thought about it or not?
Yeah, of course, I thought about um, yeah, about the real value of my collection nowadays. Uh, but I prefer not to think about it, because if I do, it's hard to touch the cards.
Yes.
Well, I'd rather put them in the binder in a very safe place, and I just and don't play. But well, I bought these cards for playing, and I've never considered Magic as an investment. And it makes life easier for me, because if I had thought about how much money I could have made, well, that
Well,
would
you
be
still can
completely,
actually.
yeah,
So
but
yes.
well, no, I don't think I will ever be able to part with my cards. And this is untouchable. I mean, the money that went into the cards, they are just lost to the budget, to the family budget. They will never return. And I'm very grateful to my family who understand me, and they don't make me regret my decision. So these are cards that will stay with me forever. Yeah, the saying goes that never say never, but now I think that I will never be able to part with them. They are just my cards, and I built many interesting decks, spiky decks and janky decks, and all those kinds of, yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, this just proves once again that old school Magic is forever, and I think this is the case for many of us. So Olga, thank you very much for being here, for telling us
Thank
your
you.
old school
Thank
Magic
you.
story. Yes, and everybody, please remember, if you want to share an old school Magic story with us, you are welcome to do so. And I will see you in the next one. So bye, Olga.
Thank you. Bye.